Welcome back to another episode in the Vault with Vitality Ventures Group, a production by Vitality Lens. Today, our featured guest is Lacey J. Faught, owner of Spry Social Media Marketing, podcast host of Spry Space, and co-author of Down the Rabbit Hole, Slowing the Spread of Misinformation and Propaganda on Social Media. In this episode, you can look forward to hearing all about her journey to building her own Wonderland in the social media sphere. Follow Lacey J and her world beyond the looking glass online everywhere. I'll link it all below. Empowered women empower women. Buckle up and let's spiral down the rabbit hole together. Take it away, Shannon and Lacey J.
You know what? I let my kids curse.
Mm-hmm.
I said to my son, I don't know how old he was, probably too fucking young. And I said, listen, if you're going to curse, it has to mean something fun. It should be funny.
Yes.
Or like make it like not angry. You know
That's
what I mean?
the biggest thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and he's 17. He does it all the time. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's
whatever.
my 12-year-old daughter, you know. She's just
they're
cracking
just
up
letters put together.
Yes.
You know?
She cracks up all the uncles at weddings when she just screams the F word and somebody's like, yeah.
It's the greatest word. It was my mother's favorite word. So, you know, hello, Gretchen. She's dead. Anyway, so I am going to, and when I said I'm going to do something I usually don't do, is introduce you because we have not met before. You're going to tell me how to say your last name. I'm going to try it, Lacey.
And I go by
Faught?
Lacey J a lot. That's kind of how I brand is Lacey J. And Faught is the last name. So Lacey J.
Faught. And Down the Rabbit Hole is, Down the Rabbit Hole, that's it. There's no little colon or anything after that, right?
Well, the tagline is slowing the spread of misinformation and propaganda on social media, but that's a mouthful.
I love this. I love this topic. I'm so excited to talk to you. And the book comes out October.
We're doing a launch event October 17th at
Okay.
WSU Vancouver. So
At where?
at WSU Vancouver.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you're originally from this area? I
Yes,
assume?
grew up in Battleground.
But you've been in marketing or social media marketing for a long time, as have I.
Yeah, I was reading that. I was like, how cool. You've got that whole digital marketing background.
I was, when Facebook first came out, I remember I was running a marketing company, and we would go to businesses, and we would have to convince them to be on Facebook, and they didn't get it. And it was like, no, you don't understand. This is where your people are. And it was a struggle for many years for businesses to understand that it was a thing.
Yes.
That now it's just what it is.
They just know already.
Right. Now, so tell me your background. So you've been in 13 years, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, getting closer to 14 now. So my degree from Washington State University was actually in broadcast news and political science. And I did my first internship at Fox Sports Northwest and decided that environment wouldn't fit me super well at that time in my life. So I went in and got my first job at a digital marketing company. Spent 8 months there, learned a lot, and went and started my own thing at 22. So I've had my own agency since I was 22 for 13 years. It'll be 14 come March. And we started off doing SEO and website development. And we really started doing social media only because it was under the umbrella of SEO. How do we drive more traffic?
Right.
And then niched down into that being what my agency is really, really good at. And so we stopped offering all the other things so that we could just settle into social media.
So that's interesting because social media is great. Like I said, we were using social media, same thing, a digital marketing company. And kind of, Maddie does our social media, but we kind of are getting away from social media a little bit. Not using it, we're using it. I can't fucking deal with it anymore.
It's very hard to do for businesses. You know, that's why, to be honest, we're one of the only agencies in the area that does what we call organic social media, where we're actually creating the content for people.
Right.
You know, we're doing the visuals, we're writing the content, we're getting consistent posts out. Not a lot of agencies will do that because it's just such a lift. That's why I think the only reason we can do it well is because it's all we do. If we threw in websites, these website projects that are mini month-long projects have such a different workflow than like the speed at which we have to get social media content out in. And so settling into that one thing is the only thing that I think lets us do it.
So how do you do that? Because it is a struggle working with businesses if you're not at the business.
Yes.
Because social media is so immediate, and so how do you do that?
Well, we specifically focus on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We don't do TikTok because of the amount of in-person stuff that would be necessary for that to be done well. So we settle into those 3 platforms, and we do either, depending on frequency and the type of client, we'll do either quarterly or monthly content planning meetings where we get everybody there. We have to get all of the things that they want over the next month or few months. We present all of our ideas, and then we run from there. We'll just draft the content, push the content out, do the presence management, run ads on the content.
Okay.
But the business owner just has to be at those monthly content planning meetings to get us everything we need.
Okay, that's, wow. And okay, so I'm going to backtrack a little.
Yes.
So you're originally from this area?
Yes.
Ridgefield, Vancouver, Portland?
Battleground.
Battleground, you grew up?
Yes,
Born and
Battleground
bred,
High School.
Battleground. Really?
Yes.
This isn't, like I said, I moved here 8 years ago from New Jersey, and it's like a different land. Well, obviously.
Than
it's
New
a different
Jersey, yeah.
Well, everything's a different land than New Jersey. The first time I ever moved from New Jersey, because I did travel, my father traveled, I took us with us, which was great. So I knew the world was different outside New Jersey. But I really didn't know. And then I was like, oh God.
Yeah, this is a little bubble of a world out here.
Yes,
in the
it
Pacific
feels very
Northwest.
small, even though it's Portland and Seattle and Vancouver, and it's growing like crazy. Even Ridgefield, where we are, growing like crazy. So now tell me, so you started your company. Who are your main clients? Is it small businesses mostly, I would assume, right?
We've got 40% of our clientele is in industrial. So that's kind of unique. We've got like manufacturers, fabricators, welders.
Wow.
Yes. And that's super fun, where we'll also...
It's super, how is it super fun? Even Maddie's like, what the fuck?
Like, imagine this, okay? We go...
I imagine little wrenches dancing and talking to each other.
We have this large fabrication company in downtown Vancouver, and what we do is, along with those quarterly content planning meetings, we also do a quarterly photo shoot. And so our photographer will come with us and we'll walk through their shop and take pictures of all of the projects that they have going. And then we're talking about those projects consistently. And when we're talking about projects, it's like bridges, okay? So like they're building bridges that are going to be in Oregon, in California. They're building dam sluice gates that are going up to Alaska. And so we get to document that project from like the first time it starts off in the shop all the way to when it's ready to be shipped out, and talk about that on LinkedIn and tag all the construction companies that are a part of it. And it is really cool to see those kind of projects, see them in the shop, and then like have finished photos of them. Yes.
And everything's a story.
Yes.
I never thought about the story of building the bridge, but I mean, I would watch that.
Yes.
But I would never think to watch that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Oh, that's
So 40%
cool.
of our clients live in that kind of world, and then 60% is lots of small businesses. Quite a few that are like business service type businesses, because business to business does so well on LinkedIn and also can do very well on Instagram. So business to business companies is another little niche for us, but then lots of other things. We've got authors that we work with. We've got HR companies that we work with. We've got we just closed out a contract with one of our favorite clients who made wildland firefighting helicopters. Okay, we're talking about the helicopters that would go and like sip up all the water from the lake and put out fires around the world, in Greece, in Australia. And so we got to be the ones who were kind of communicating on their behalf to the community of people who go nuts over these helicopters.
So it's very niche, which obviously is how to be successful, in business if you're social media. That's fascinating. How large is your company? Do you have a lot of people?
There are 8 of us.
Okay.
8 remote employees. 3 of us are full-time salaried, and the rest are hourly, and work anywhere between 10 and 25 hours a week for the part-time employees. But it's really cool. We're pretty distributed, mostly in Washington and Oregon, but we had one of our employees who lived on her sailboat off the coast of Mexico for 4 years and was full-time salaried living off her sailboat in Mexico.
I feel like I want to do that, but then I wouldn't.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Ask her about it. That's
right?
exactly what she would say.
I feel like, so we'll go back to that. But I was talking about my girlfriend trip tomorrow. You know what I did for the girlfriend trip? This is what, because we usually do something. We make fun of each other a lot.
That's your brand of love.
It's just it's how we do it, and, that kind of stuff. We all have our different personalities. I'm the one that's like, all right, let's go do this. Let's do this. Now we're going to go for a run. Now we're going to do this. And they're like, no, we want to craft. and then the one wants to drink.
Yes.
And then starts yelling. Everybody has the one. Stacy, you know who you are. They won't listen. They don't listen to me.
No.
But my one friend Judy and I, who I'm picking up in Denver, are going to be there tomorrow, and the other ones are showing up the next morning. So we're going to get them at the airport, and we do really stupid shit we think is funny, really bad. So tomorrow I got one of those inflatable dress T-Rex costumes, and then she got the unicorn. So we're meeting them at the airport in that. So that's fun.
Why not?
Yeah, usually we plan more once we had like lanyards, like we were going to like a lady detective conference.
Sure.
Because we want to be lady detectives. Because we're 5 years old, But anyway, we'll go back to that. So, social media, you're doing all this, but this book, which I can't wait to read, and I wanted to read it beforehand. Tell me about the book, because it's a holy shit, the world's falling apart, like get your shit together kind of book.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis.
That's your tagline now.
That's a great synopsis.
So tell me about it.
Yeah, since I've worked in social media so long, it's hard to live in that world and not see all of the parts about it that need improvement, like from a cultural standpoint, When I first started thinking this way, I started doing assemblies at schools for 4th and 5th graders, and we would do these assemblies to try to get some information about them, about what they were experiencing as they were starting their social media journeys. And yes, they were starting in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade pre-2020.
Not my kids.
Okay, I know.
Not my kids.
I know. My daughter finally got me to let her have a TikTok on my phone only, so that I can look at everything and I can be a part of everything, and she's got to ask me for it first before she does anything.
And I know you're not really big on TikTok, but do you feel like TikTok is better? I don't know. They're all dancing. I don't know. I guess none of that matters. It's how people comment, right? It all comes down to the algorithms and how people interact with it, for sure. Okay. And I've been fairly comfortable with everything my daughter is doing on her social media as I've been able to look through it and whatnot. I would not feel comfortable with it if I didn't get to have it in my pocket, and be a part of it. But so we started this kind of social media for good platform that we've had as the mission of our company back in about 2018, 2019, doing these assemblies at schools. And then when 2020 hit, we stopped doing those in school, but then we had to deal with all of the aftermath of 2020 on social media. Right.
And that was wild. I mean, that was life-changing as a social media manager, to go from just having your focus be putting out good content for clients, to all of a sudden managing these comment sections full of people arguing about vaccine mandates, about masks, about, Black Lives Matter. All of that was happening in our office, right? Because our office is these social media comment sections. And so as we watch over the years, this stuff just continued to get worse and worse. And we got in our world, we got better and better at identifying what was actually real people commenting on content and what was bot content or hacked accounts putting out comments that were causing people to have arguments. And people didn't even know or understand that what they were responding to wasn't even from a real person. And so that's when we really started to dig in and think, how do we elevate people's digital literacy enough that we can stop fighting with each other, stop distrusting the information that's coming through our social media channels, so that we can actually use social media for what it's meant for, which is to connect us. That's where it's powerful, is its ability to connect.
So you saw a complete switch because of the pandemic.
Yes.
in how people use social media.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And especially businesses. I mean, how businesses use social media and how they have to be able to not only just post content, but also be able to navigate the culture of the online world in a way that's going to make it so that they can enjoy being on social media and not just totally unplug from it and leave the platform because of some of these architected arguments that can happen between us as a culture.
So you see, and I'm assuming you still see, there we go. There's my daughter.
I wondered if my kids were gonna today too.
She's 33. She can hold on. So now I did just see, and we'll go back to what I want to talk about what you were saying. Did just see that Instagram for teens? That's new, right?
Yes, and they've got there's a couple different apps that the kids are using. This Lemon 8 app is something that they're using that's kind of like Instagram, but I haven't noticed it to be a lot better content for them than what's on Instagram.
But if you're saying that it's the bots that are starting the problem, then everybody joins in, starting the negative and starting that divisive kind of talk. How do you avoid them doing that even in a teen or lemonade section?
You can't. The biggest way that you can do it is by elevating your digital literacy. So in the book, I talk about something very specific called the 3-click method, which is basically when you see content, the first thing you do is you read the entirety of it. So let's say that it was a shared piece of content. And a lot of time, a shared piece of content will clip or hide most of the caption that went along with it, and all you're seeing is the visual. So click 1 is clicking to see what the original post actually said. What's the words that go along with this? What's the context of what I'm reading? The second click is to look at the profile of the person or business that published this piece of content. Okay, let's look at their profile. What's their bio say? What are their other content that they're posting about? And the third click is you can click and see the about info for a profile, which shows you when that profile was opened, what country it was opened in, if it's got any ads running. And with those 3 clicks, which really take a very short amount of time if you know what you're doing, you can decide right away if this is a source that you want to believe and amplify the message of. And that, just doing that little bit, would change the discourse on social media immensely.
I assume people do that. I do it because I'm like, who is this person? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But people don't.
No, people don't. And especially because, like, on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts, there's so much content that comes out from, and Facebook, ambiguous profiles. And what we mean by that is like meme accounts, perhaps. So accounts that just post memes, but when you scroll through their set of memes for the day, the first and second one might be funny, but the third one is political, and the fourth one is satire on a current event. And it's all kind of like mixed into this. So it's not as forthright that they're coming out and spreading misinformation and propaganda, but it's like seeded inside these ambiguous profiles that people follow because they're funny, but then they're also taking in all of this messaging without even really noticing that they're taking it in, and having no idea who it's coming from because it's a meme account.
I love that, the 3-click method. Just even saying and getting in your brain, I think sometimes it's just breaking it down that way.
Yes.
That people go, oh, before I do anything. Because people do. They see something. I even said this to Maddie even before you walked in and I wasn't thinking about it. I'm like, I literally read nothing. I just look.
Yes.
Now I just, doom scroll, whatever you want to call it, right? Isn't that what they call doom scrolling?
Yes, doom scrolling.
I doom scroll. I was doom scrolling yesterday for no reason.
Yes.
I will say my pretend scientist boyfriend, Dr. Andrew Huberman. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, but I love the idea of a pretend scientist boyfriend.
Oh, I'm telling you, we had the Russian and I, the Russian's my partner. He's not Russian. He hates I say that. He came to me because your pretend scientist boyfriend is talking about social media, but he talks about, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because I'm bored? I mean, there's a million other things to do.
And for most of us, it's a coping mechanism. It's like a pacifier. We just do it to kind of avoid having to think and avoid having to just be with our own thoughts. It's just so much easier for us when we start to feel something to just come over here and numb out with the content that we take in.
It's difficult because It is. It's mind-numbing. It's time-wasting. But it's also so educational if you're...
Yes, it can be.
And even, again, I'm a lot older than you, but, like, there's a lot of issues, especially women-focused issues, like menopause and all that other stuff, PPD, all those things that nobody ever paid attention to, women didn't talk about because, men have ruled the world since the beginning of time and didn't pay any attention to it. Women issues, women now can get together and support each other and talk about, and we can get good information if we're listening to the right people.
Yeah, and like it gives me goosebumps you saying that, because like to me that's one of the biggest reasons why I wrote this book with Adrian too, is because I think social media is one of the most powerful tools we've ever had access to, especially groups that are not as represented in power structures, because all of a sudden we have access to each other, and when we have access to each other and we can share information like that, our power grows. It gives us a voice and a connection that we've never had before at all. And so I want to be able to maintain that and make that as healthy as possible as we move forward, and not have this tool that is so useful to us become not useful because we no longer trust each other and we can't suss out information that isn't accurate.
I 100%. It is wonderful. Social media is wonderful. I also wonder, when Twitter first started a million years ago, I was on Twitter, and Twitter was joyful. It was fun. People, there were a lot more women on it. I don't see that many on there now. It wasn't angry. It wasn't, let's just get in and fight about things, which is how I see it now. I got off of it. But it was more like joyful. And then when it became very angry, I chose to be like, okay, this doesn't bring value to me anymore. I'm not that. I don't want to be involved in this. It's bringing me down. It's very negative. That's why I don't watch the news, because I'm like, fuck that shit. It's just so. Plus, it's full. People are full of shit. I like when you whisper your swear words. Yeah, they are
on your own show.
I know. I know. Like nobody's gonna hear. People. And I don't want to say everybody's full of shit, but they get so caught up in reading a tweet. Oh, did you see what this person said? And then everybody buys it. Nobody checks.
Yeah. And so often now what they're doing is screenshotting someone's tweet and making that a visual of a post. And how easy is it to manufacture on Canva something that looks like someone else's tweet and just share that image? And that's the kind of things that fools people so quickly, because we're just looking at that visual, right? We're just looking at that visual. We're not looking at context. And all of a sudden what we think is a tweet from somebody is just something totally manufactured.
And then now we have AI, which I love. AI. Again, Chad is my pretend AI boyfriend. I obviously have issues. I had a lot of boyfriends growing up. I didn't need to make them up. Maybe a couple. Even the visual now, which looks 100% real, we don't know if it's true. Like, how are we ever going to get to the point where we know what's real and what's not? Maybe we don't. Maybe we just choose to. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's tough because there are some tools. Like, there are some tools online. There's a tool called isitai.com where you can take a screenshot of an image, or you can download an image and you can upload it, and it'll tell you the likelihood that was created by AI or not. Because there are certain ways that an AI image will actually create the file versus how a normal human-generated photo or graphic would be created. And so you can run it through that. But I think even more important than that is starting to train our mind to have some doubt.
Right.
Right? Like, if we're very easy to believe specific sources, even, maybe we're just very quick to believe anything that this person says, that can get us in some trouble, because all of a sudden our critical thinking is turned off. And we have to have our critical thinking turned on all the time when we're on social media, regardless of whose content we're looking at, because how else are we going to keep thinking for ourselves? And how else are we going to actually find truth and connection on social media unless we have that critical thinking brain turned on?
And I wonder if because AI, and we all know that things now can look so real and be so fake, maybe it's good because we're now questioning. AI's making us question what we see, whereas before it's like, yeah, I believe everything I see. I don't know.
I hope so. That's what I'm hoping as we keep moving towards this. One of the large sections in the book actually talks about biases and how those biases are often used against us on social media. When I talk about, maybe there's some specific person we believe, there's a bias we talk about in the book called the halo effect, which is basically like we take a person and because they have something we want, maybe they're attractive, maybe they're wealthy, maybe they have power, whatever it is, they have something that we want. And so now all of a sudden we see everything that they do as good and right. And so whoop, off goes that critical thinking brain because we just believe everything they say because we want to be like them. And so that bias, along with another 5 or 6 biases that we talk about in the book, are things that if we don't go into our social media experience aware of and thinking about, it's very easy for creators to take advantage of those biases and get us to believe and feel and react instead of doing anything proactive or any sort of research.
So is this book, do you feel this book is more geared towards the younger crew or just kind of everybody? Because you mentioned biases. Absolutely. I love that halo effect is strong. Again, my pretend scientist boyfriend does no wrong.
Yes. Okay. Exactly.
But yeah. He really doesn't do any wrong. Anyway.
You could ask ChatGPT, tell me one thing that my pretend scientist boyfriend does
put
wrong.
them against each other. There we go. No, I don't want to hear anything negative. Although I did hear a few negative things, but that's okay. I'm wondering, so then what do you do? So now it gets into, we see, because I've been on Twitter, I still go on Twitter if all of a sudden, something big happened, I'll go on Twitter because literally they have the news the quickest.
100%.
But then I'll read it and I'll go, but that's not right. That's not true. But I'm not getting involved in those conversations. Do I have a responsibility to say, wait a minute, let's backtrack, this is incorrect, these are the sources? What is our responsibility when we see something?
I think, first of all, our biggest responsibility is not to perpetuate. So that sharing mechanism, I think, is our biggest opportunity for impact, okay? So it's very easy for a lot of people. Now, some people get on social media and they don't really share anything. They kind of lurk in the background, and that's one subset of people. But there's this other subset of people that are sharers, right? And they're often the people who others come to for information, right? And so that sharing mechanism...
Sharing with good intentions.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because they like to be in the know and they like to inform people and they like being the type of person who people come to learn from. Even in a community, right? Adrienne, who's the co-author, she is that for me. I'm not a heavy sharer, but neither. I will come to her Instagram stories and I will watch her Instagram stories so that I know what I'm supposed to care about right now. Because our values align, and so I can look at her stuff. Now, sometimes I might look and go, I don't know about that one. But that's because I have that mindset built up. Now, your question, though, the sharing mechanism, I think, is the strongest thing that we have the ability to impact, is can we not perpetuate? So if we see something that makes us feel something big and we want to act, that share button might not be our best action. The best action that we could do is that 3-click method. Can we go back? Can we research into that piece of content and have that be our action? Because us actually knowing the truth about something is stronger than us sharing something that could be false.
Right. Oh, that's
so. Yes. I don't think you have to go off and correct people all the time. You don't have to say, that's not true. I don't think you have to have that responsibility. But I think the biggest responsibility is how
personal responsibility.
Exactly. Is whether or not you share something, and when you see something, whether or not you actually research to figure it out for yourself.
Okay, but what if it's something... One of the things that bugs the crap out of me, and I'm really not on social media personally. I mean, I am, but I haven't posted in freaking months. And anything on my professional one, she tells me what to do. Because, again, you get sucked into it, and I cringe a lot. when I
Oh,
see,
yeah.
especially as a business owner, and I see other businesses and I go, oh, what are we doing here? Do you do that?
Oh, yes.
And I want to be like, you're probably not doing, your business any good by posting this picture again, celebrating again in your business. And then I think, well, maybe I'm just being like a nerd, which I'm not. I mean, I am. I do like to code and shit, but not that way. So it's. So you don't think you should say, hey, listen, maybe you should check your facts, because then you're getting involved in it. Feels like high school. It feels like Mean Girls, Popular Girls, and then, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And the gossiping, saying one little thing, and then it blows up into something huge and everybody believing it. And then say you're the person being attacked, or you're the person where the misinformation is being spread about you or your business or your company. What do you do? And I know there are two, you ignore it, you say, fuck it, let it go away, there will be someone else they're getting after tomorrow, or you're getting into it. I'm not a get into it person.
I'm not often either.
Okay.
My therapist says maybe I could get into it a little more. Maybe I could not be so conflict averse.
Don't people want to believe what they want to believe? You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's almost like I'm not going to ever convince you to not feel this way about me. Even if I know you're wrong or the information is wrong, you have chosen to believe that because some part of you wants to.
Yes, isn't that true? I mean, so often what we project is really a reflection of what's in us, not anything about the other person anyway.
Exactly. So the taking the highest road possible and walking away is a very difficult thing to do. You get no awards for being the bigger person or the better person. Karma's a bitch. It usually works itself out in the long run.
It does.
But on social media, it's scary. It can be scary for a lot of people. Now, my son's not on. He's 17. He's the youngest one. And my daughter, who's the oldest one, is on it. And I cringe at what she posts. Not because it's bad, just because I'm like, oh, you're so not cool.
It's just different than what you would do.
Right. But I do know that she also reads things, oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? And I'll be like, yeah, no, that's not true.
Yeah, I get that way with my mom some, right? And that's where I think...
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Now, my parents are dead. Hello, Tom and Gretchen. But last time I was east, my friends who we were talking about before, my girlfriends, that's their biggest complaint.
Yes.
Their parents. And it's usually Facebook. But that they believe everything they read. Then they get involved. And they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, one of our main target demographics for this book is people 55 plus, because it is just this, most people in that age bracket did not grow up with the internet and did not grow up with social media.
Right, and if you're not in that business, because I'm 55 plus, but if you're not in that business and aren't working it every day, you don't understand.
Yeah, that's where there's this literacy gap. It's like this digital literacy gap with people who use these tools all the time but don't know how to use them,
Yes.
And so it's no question why, my mom comes to me when her when her Facebook gets hacked, right? And then it's no wonder why when she comes to me and tells me that, this generation doesn't want to work anymore, and no,
that's what she's reading.
Yes, and I'm like, and I'll go like this, oh, okay, so that's the storyline we're going with right now. Okay,
I like that comment. That's the storyline.
And so it's just
where she has no personal experience that way, but she's now believing that narrative.
And the thing that's super interesting about it is that it's good for us to know what kind of narrative is being talked about in bubbles that we're not a part of, because that's one of the biggest dangers on social media is these bubbles that are happening, these echo chambers, if you will, where when you start engaging with certain types of content, all of a sudden you find yourself down this rabbit hole where your children are over here down this rabbit hole and your husband or your pretend boyfriend's over on this rabbit hole, and we aren't getting the same information at all, even about the same stories. We're getting totally different sets of information. And the danger is that when we keep engaging that way, let's say, for instance, somebody shares something that we see as false. And instead of engaging with them and saying, did you know this is false? We're like, I don't want that in my feed anymore, unfollow. Okay. Now we have no idea what what people in that group are hearing and what kind of things they believe. So all of a sudden we think they are insane because we don't see any of what they see. They don't see any of what we see, and we cannot understand how each other have the beliefs that they have. That's some of the big dangers.
So while social media has brought us all together, it's also like separated us.
Exactly.
So what do we do about that? I mean, algorithms are algorithms. And I'll click on something and then I'll be like, damn, I now know my algorithm's going to show me more of this, and I didn't even mean to see that, and I don't want to see it. You know, once I clicked on a snake, I have a huge phobia, and then a whole bunch of fucking snakes are showing up. And I'm like, I'm going to kill myself.
Your Discover feed is just full of cobras.
Right? So I'm like, so how do you... I mean, it went away because then I'm like, all right, I'll just look at these dances. But it was a job. But I also knew what to do to get out of it where people don't.
And part of it is staying in relationship with people who think differently than you. Not being super trigger happy to unfollow or block just because someone has a different ideology than you. We've got to be able to build up the distress tolerance in our own self to be able to see something that we don't agree with and have it exist and not have to do something about it. It's okay that my mom thinks differently than I do about this generation's work habits. If she wants to ask me about it, I'll share my opinion, but I'd rather know that that's what she's thinking than live in totally separate worlds.
I 100% agree, because when we stay in our bubble, we become stunted.
Yes.
And then our beliefs become what we think are right. And realistically, we all have different experiences. We have different thoughts. My beliefs are there because of the life I've had and the experience I've had. But yeah, I want to hear other people's opinions on things, and then why do they have those opinions? It's got to be coming from somewhere, right? I don't think people live to just argue. There are a few people who live to just
Certainly,
argue.
I've got a cousin like that. You know?
Yeah, I think
He's
we all have that one family member where we're
Yes.
like, yeah, no, right? But those are the extremes, and then we talk, and then the extremes become what is, this is what people, no, they're the extremists. And usually it's the extremists who are yelling the loudest, talking the most, and then everybody else thinks that's what everybody believes. And I think that middle 80% or whatever it is, we're all kind of just living our life, doing our thing, and I feel much more balanced. You know?
Yes.
I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I believe some of this and I believe some of that, you know, but I'm not going to put myself in a kind of box.
Yeah, that's one of the shortcuts that we take as humans, is labeling things, including labeling ourselves.
It's comforting.
Yes, if we can just say this is and this isn't, it's easy. Things feel easy anyway.
Sure.
Inside ourselves, things
Because
feel
then we
easy.
can make sense of things.
Yes, but believing like that makes it difficult for us to connect with other people. We have a whole section in the book about, it's called Drink Me, and it's a section all about how even the platforms themselves are coded in a way to manipulate us into action as opposed to thought, you know? When you scroll through on Facebook and you see a news article, the first colored button you see is a button that says share. It's the share button. It's not the read more button, you know?
But from a marketing perspective, don't you love that kind of shit? You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like the weird shit. Please tell me this shit happens. I know it happens to everybody, but like, and I don't even know where it comes from, but my son and I stopped at the house the other day, and he went and grabbed... I mean, we literally walked in. My phone was in the car, by the way. Now, it was probably connected to Wi-Fi, but the car was outside. We had to go to the bank. So he runs in, and he hadn't eaten, and it was like 3 o'clock, and he's like, let me just go in. So we walk in. He opens a freezer. He takes out a drumstick, right? You know,
Yes.
those ice
The ice
creamy
cream,
things. We get in the car. I open my phone. The first goddamn fucking thing I see is a whole thing about how you shouldn't eat drumsticks, and this whole study how they left it out overnight for 24 hours and it didn't melt and it doesn't say ice cream on it. Now, you know that happens to you. That kind of stuff happens
yes.
constantly. I had a point, by the way. I don't know what it is. So I go, shit, that's crazy. But my marketing brain goes, that's awesome.
Yes.
So awesome for business clients, crazy for personal.
Yeah, and when it gets, it is awesome for business clients. The ability that we have to do targeted niche advertising with social media is great. Now, where it crosses that line to being something that has some risk inherent in it is when it's political. You know, when we circle back to 2016, there was something called Project Alamo, which was where the Trump campaign spent millions and millions of dollars on Facebook ads targeted towards a specific niche group of people. And they got this specific niche group of people, the data about them through, you know, on Facebook where you can like say, take a quiz for what princess you are and whatever. Well, when you click the agree checkboxes on those little games, those little third-party apps, what it's actually doing is giving that third-party app company permission to use all the data that you have on Facebook.
I know. I created one of those.
See? You're naughty.
I'm not naughty because it's helping people.
Yes. So sometimes it helps people, and sometimes those.
That's what I did this weekend, Maddie. I made sure there was one of those little check. I
You
swear.
did.
I swear. I created this personalized treatment recommender for med spas because nobody knows what med spas do, but they know what they want to fix. So you go in and it tells you what you can, what treatments fix that particular thing. And then this weekend I added a little box because I wanted the information.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you can get that data and then you can actually use that data with millions and millions and millions of dollars to subtly change the way people think about issues, the way people think about political
that's where
candidates.
It gets dangerous.
Yes, very much so. And so that's where we've got to have a little bit more of that critical thinking brain turned on when we're doing anything on social media. And the biggest things are we believing things right away, or are we questioning things? And are we sharing and perpetuating right away, or are we digging in and researching? You know, those are the things that we've got to have if we want to be able to use social media as a tool to connect in perpetuity. Otherwise, it's gonna...
But the questioning is hard for people because we are tribal and we like being in the group. And like the 55 pluses, can we make it 60 plus? The 55 pluses, you know, their friends are saying it too, and their community, and as you get older, the community, you know, your role in the community becomes different because you are realistically kind of, you know, you're not the, you know, driving business and things like that. You're kind of taking a more backseat role. I don't want to say it like that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And because we are such individuals are tribal, because we need the tribe in order to survive, separating yourself out from that is difficult.
Yeah,
It's
it can
easier to be like, yeah, me too. Nobody works anymore.
Yeah,
Millennials
they're
are lazy.
bad.
Right, they're lazy. They're crazy. You know, whatever. And then again, back to reality shows. I put on the Sister Mormon new reality.
Oh, I watched that whole thing. I've watched it all already.
So I went through maybe 4 or 5 episodes. And it was so weird.
Well, I grew up Mormon. I'm not anymore, but I grew up that way. And so for me, it was great. It was the perfect amount of weird because I could relate to it perfectly. And I'm like, yep, super weird.
They're like, oh, we're going to party. And then they take out their Cokes. And I was like, what? You know what I mean?
Yes.
They're gorgeous human beings. I mean, it didn't make sense to me that the let's go to the med spa. They went to a med spa and they got Botox, but they needed laughing gas, which I've never seen in my life before, but whatever.
Interesting.
That's fine. Do your thing. But then they wouldn't it was hard for me. Fascinating.
Very.
There's one of those husbands I want to punch right in the face. Very controlling.
That you want to.
Yeah, I don't like.
Oh,
him.
yeah.
I mean, the whole women, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to like piss off an entire religion. I will tell you though. Okay, Maddie's like, that's all right. You probably already did that. When I moved here, because there's Mormons out here.
Yeah,
on this side.
There's a lot.
They're not on the other side of the country. I watched Big Love. Big Love was a show a long time ago on Netflix. I didn't know Mormons
on
still.
TLC.
Yeah. Oh, were you in it?
No, I wasn't.
No,
in
that
it.
that was Bill Paxton. That wasn't real. I thought it was we didn't know Mormons still existed.
Oh, really?
No.
Interesting.
No. So when I moved out here, I was like, oh, there's still Mormons. I was so excited. I loved Big Love. I was like, I understand the sister wives thing. Not with the dude, but hanging out together with your girlfriends. That looks good. Yeah, I didn't know that Mormons were still a thriving community. It was shocking to me. So
I'll tell you, I got a lot of dishes done watching that episode. Those episodes. I just threw my headphones on and I just got a lot of dishes done.
Really?
I need a good show to do any task.
No. In my house, I'm like, I'm going to clean the downstairs.
Yes,
like on the TV, and it's like the background thing,
Yes.
and I watch it and I don't.
Laundry
I listen
folding.
To it. Yes. 100%.
I need a companion in my ears.
I wonder if that's a marketing thing. Do you podcasts? Do you sleep with listening
When
to
I
podcasts?
drive, I don't listen to music. I only listen to podcasts and audiobooks.
100%.
I think it's a brain chemistry thing,
100%. Constantly listening to something.
I need a long form story.
Yes.
Don't give me something. That's why I can't listen to music. It's only a few minutes long. I can't get into it. It's not helpful to my brain. I need something long form.
Do you switch what kind of podcasts you listen to?
Yes.
I mean, like during the week, I only listen to podcasts that I feel will help me in my business. On the weekends, I listen to the true crime and then I listen to super nerdy Noble Blood about, the kings and queens from the whatever century.
That's funny because I listened to, on the way here, I listened to Celtic fairy mythology on the way here. So
Wow.
yeah, so I don't have it at certain times of the day or week, but I usually have a few different things that I'm listening to that if I get bored or my brain needs something more educational or my brain needs something a little bit more escapism, I've got my categories that it can fill how I'm feeling in them.
Fairy
mythology, why not?
Never would have occurred to me.
Yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts after you watch a show, binge watch a show? Because I fucking do. Friday Night Lights.
Sure.
Now I got to listen to the Friday Night Lights podcast.
I'm a big Survivor fan, so every episode I listen to the podcast after.
Huge Survivor
I've auditioned
fan.
3 times.
You have?
Get my ass in there.
I've watched every Survivor, but we only have streaming, so whatever's not on
Yes.
streaming now, which I think is only 1 or 2.
Yeah, it depends on where you're streaming, because I stream them all through Amazon Prime, and you just pay for the season, and it's no problem.
Oh, I think I'm 1 or 2 behind because during COVID, I caught up and watched it like a couple times.
Yes,
But Survivor is interesting because it's such a psychological game. All the
Yes.
other stuff is just,
And it's just the human
interesting.
behavior elements of it are just so fun to watch.
Right. I wonder if that's a marketing thing.
It must be.
Tell me about marketing and why you got involved in marketing. Was there a point, or is it just something you were always like, I can fix that?
Well, with my degree in broadcast journalism, what that foundationally taught me is how to do short form storytelling. Broadcast journalism is like, take this big news event and say it in 30-second news story,
Right.
What's the most important things to get out? How do you say it? How do you keep it entertaining and informative enough that people are going to pay attention through the whole story? Because it's important that you get the message across wholly in a very short period of time. And so for digital marketing anyway, I feel like that just translated so perfectly.
Why did you get into broadcast journalism? I'm just wondering, is it just something you always...
I am really good at talking. It's so comfortable for me. I am the most comfortable and the most in my element when I have some sort of an audience. I danced all through my growing up. I danced in college. I still dance now for the Portland Winterhawks ice hockey dance team.
Do you really?
Which is very, very fun.
That's exciting.
Yes.
Wow.
And I did pageants growing up, so I did interviews and speeches on stage from the time I was 5 on. So I think that it stems from that.
Mm-hmm. Just performing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And do you still do pageants or anything like that?
No, I don't do pageants now that once I got married, it's the patriarchy. Once you get married and all of a sudden you're not actually on the market, you actually are not allowed to be in Miss America, Miss USA, etc.
Right?
It's fine.
The patriarchy. When are all those old white men going to die? Sorry.
Well,
soon. Really? We think so, but
I don't know. They're still running Congress and they're still making laws about social media when they have no idea what's even happening, which is fun.
Yeah, how do we get away from that? Did you ever think about politics?
Yes, because my second degree is in political science.
Okay.
And so this overlap of media and politics is the most interesting to me, which is a big reason where this book is, this book idea has lived in my gut since I sat in my media and politics class in college. The overlap between power and information flow is so interesting to me. I have weaved that into the book some, but that idea of who has the information has the power. That's why I want social media to continue to be something that we can actually share information on, so that we have the power, not the people who are controlling that information flow have the power.
100%. So there's this, we could fucking do this. There's so much. It's wonderful against social media and terrifying, because all you need is one tweet or something from someone who does have the power saying something that's completely false, which I think is a land that we've all lived in since the beginning of time. That's human nature. You're going to push your own agenda, and you might adjust the words you're using in order for people to climb on and agree with you. That's human nature. And so therefore social media, the people saying no, fuck you, or no, that's not how it goes, is a good thing, but it spirals into such negativity, and that's concerning to me. The negativity that comes from that, I think it's magnetic. It's the content that is full of conflict and negativity, it draws us. It's even back in journalism, on newspapers, if it bleeds, it leads. It's you say the things that are most extreme and most negative, because as humans, we are programmed and conditioned evolutionarily to try to avoid pain and avoid dying, So conflict and negativity draws our attention to it because we want to be safe. And so we want to learn the information that's going to be potentially harmful to us in order to keep us safe. Right.
And that's used against us constantly in all media. And so part of that, it's hard. This is the thing, is there's not an easy 1, 2, 3 of how to fix that. It's go to therapy, Well,
I have my own thoughts on that too, so.
Condition your own mind to not be primed to look for the threat.
Right, because as we, and if things are continually told to us over and over again, it's like memories. Memories realistically are bullshit. We can have an idea of what happened, but as we hit that memory, and I'm again, you know who I'm talking about, talks about this. As we hit that memory again, we fill in the gaps. We fill in the gaps, and therefore, what we thought happened after a while hitting that memory really isn't what happened. And that's why you and I, in a year, maybe will have a different memory of this experience.
Adrienne talks about in the book one of the biases being the misinformation effect. And she talks about this study that was done where they showed 2 subsets of people a car accident and then asked them questions about it. And what they're doing is that witness effect. What information does a witness have? And when they asked one subset of group of people, they said the car smashed into. They used the word smashed. When the car smashed into it, blah, blah, blah. And in another group, they just said when the car hit the other car. A week later, when they re-interviewed these people, the group of people that had the word smashed used in the interview were more likely to say that there was a car window that broke than the other group, when the car window never broke. There was never a window that actually broke, but the group where they used the word smashed was more likely to say that the window did break versus the other group that just said hit. So it's little pieces.
Because the link,
exactly,
the link between the two, the word and then the action that you assume may have happened.
Exactly. And so that's the thing that can be dangerous on social media, is like, even if it's not an outright lie, what political parties will do is they will use some trigger phrases over and over and over again. And all of a sudden, now that becomes a belief over time. Even if it wasn't true, when you use a phrase over and over again, it changes the way people remember things that happened over time.
Not only that, you could then show the video to the people who thought the car window broke and said, see, it didn't break. Oh, no, but I remember. People will argue. Even if a video is in front of their face, they'll argue about it.
Are you sure that was the video that I saw? Yeah, definitely.
So what is your take on, I mentioned before, it can be depressing, and it's also, there's some wonderful, quotes are great. I'm over the freaking quotes, but whatever, they're great.
One of the things that people have to be doing consistently is like auditing who they're following, because if we're scrolling through content and it is causing us to have these negative feelings about ourselves, we can put out any messaging about how confident we feel all day long, but if the messaging we're taking in actually does not make us feel that way, then it's all hollow and it's shallow, and that's also not real connection, right? We have to be putting out content that actually reflects us if we're going to achieve any sort of connection. You can't have this mask on all the time and think that you're going to be able to build a community.
Right. Do you think the mask will ever come off? Do you think that the filters will, and I don't mean the filters, but you know what I mean, the filters that people put out there, do you think it will ever, will we get to a point where everybody realizes it's kind of bullshit, and then the things that will shine will be the we always say this, be authentic, that's how you get, whatever you get. Do you think we'll change? There has to be a tipping point. There always is in everything, where all of a sudden we're going down a different road.
It's like, it's kind of like you were talking about earlier with this tribalism concept, and how, we want to put out something that puts us into this group. We want to be labeled in this group or that group. And right now on social media, I think there's a very large amount of people on extremes. People are presenting themselves in more extreme ways. Either I'm all the way confident, or I'm threatening suicide on social media.
Right.
There's not a lot of people in this mid camp that's like, man, I had a tough week.
Right. Right.
And same way in politics. The people who are talking the most are the ones who are over here or over here. There's not a lot here. So I don't think that these polls are ever going to go away. I don't think anybody's ever going to drop the mask. I don't think that everybody is going to let go of the blaming and pointing of you're right, you're wrong. But where I think that there's room for actual impact, like, can we not create a bigger, more magnetic tribe in the middle where people want to be seen as thoughtful?
Right, but that doesn't. That's not exciting, is it? You know what I mean?
It feels good.
It does feel good.
And I think,
and I've seen it on Twitter. People be like, "Hey, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in that either. This guy." They don't get the likes. They don't get the interaction because it's not extreme. But I think again, the younger ones believe the extremists. The older ones believe the extremists. I'm not saying people in the middle don't, but I think, again, we go into the, more critical thinking stage.
Yes.
But you also don't get the attention, and if you are working to become more visible in whatever your business is, you got to be a little extreme.
Well, I wonder if there's a way to be extremely in the middle, like, are there just things that you can, because that's where I think there is the most potential, is to be able to draw people from these polls into a collective that is more in the middle, where we feel a sense of belonging and we feel that we are connected to each other because we can understand everyone. I do think that there's a place for us, but it does have to mean that we're okay with letting go of some of that attention economy. We have to be okay with the fact that we're not going to get the most attention, which is where I think the whole reason that this book is centered around critical thinking is because that's where we have the most growth to do, is that when we turn that critical thinking on, it turns off some of those things like using attention as a coping mechanism, right? Because those are just reactive things. I want to get tons of attention because I want to be validated, you know what I mean? But if my critical
that'll go away too.
Right.
People need to understand you could have all the attention in the world and tomorrow nobody's going to give a shit.
Right. And if I have my critical thinking brain on, I can think more like that,
Right.
And I can live more in that middle space where there is a collective of us who could feel this sense of belonging in that middle space without having all of the side effects of living in a poll, in these polls where we're always angry at each other, we're always fighting, we're always believing what's coming into our feeds. We've got to bring more into that middle space where we're all thinking critically and we're all using the tools to connect.
I think that's why I like podcasts so much, because you don't have a lot of that shit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You have people talking like this. You have different points of view, and I think it opens up. I mean, I've learned so much from podcasts. I can't say that about social media realistically, but at all, that's a doom. They feel very, very, very different. Both are trying to do the same thing, but they feel very different.
Yeah, and that's some of the difference between short form and long form content too, Social media can't be our only tool to connect. It can't be our only tool to learn because so much of it is surface level. Like you said at the beginning, it can open us up to important things about women's issues. We might see a couple great statistics about menopause and about PPMD, but those statistics are just these little tiny anchor points at the outside. If we want to actually learn, we have to find an expert, listen to podcasts.
Right.
And so we have to be able to balance out our media input with both short form and long form. And that's missing in a lot of people who are just using social media as their main tool to learn and connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Down the Rabbit Hole, October
17th.
I'm very excited. I can't wait to read this book. The 3-click method. So you're hitting, and you're saying that obviously for everybody, but you think our most, you mentioned in the book, the most fragile, I guess, groups are the older groups and the younger groups.
Correct.
Right? But this is something everybody should employ. Stop doom scrolling, for God's sakes. And again, don't be that person. Yeah. Oh, share. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If we can, on both ends, I think that the 30 to 50 year olds, we've got to be a little bit of the muscle in this. We've got to be willing to stress our relationships by having conversations, and the book actually gives us some really good tools to have some of those conversations too. At the end of every chapter in Down the Rabbit Hole, there's a little section called Put It Into Practice, and it's like a small activity that you can do to reflect on your own social media use. And a lot of those activities require another person. Grab someone else who's in a different age range or ideological bracket than you and scroll your feeds side by side. Look and see when a news story pops up and see how it's presented on both feeds.
I love that.
Yes.
I'm going to do that this week when I'm with my girlfriends. I'm also going to tell them to buy this book for their mothers and their fathers.
Yes.
It's their mothers. It's the mothers. It's not the fathers. I don't know why. Do you find there's a gender?
I mean, the demo is really 55 plus women. I said 55 plus, but it's 55 plus women.
I wonder if it's because all the men are dead. Well, I don't know.
I'm sorry, I laughed at that.
All the dead men. No, but it's their moms.
Yeah, it is. Because they're the ones who are change makers in their communities.
And you get to a certain point, and their kids are gone now. So now they have time that they never freaking had before. And now they have a voice, and they want to be heard. Because that hadn't happened before either, especially in the more 70 and 80-year-old crew. They've never had a voice. And it's exciting now they have a voice. But that's a good stocking stuffer, good Christmas present, Hanukkah present. I don't know what the Mormons do. That present
They do Christmas too.
Oh, I don't see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, in the short term, this is coming out right before the election. And so having it and starting to think about what we're seeing in our feeds in regards to politics and having our critical thinking brain turned on, always doing the 3-click method and doing some of these put it into practice activities with the people who we love and care about.
I like the practice activities.
Yes.
That's great. Because otherwise you're just telling someone.
Yes.
This is great. But you're like, oh, look.
Yeah, you've
look
got a
what
good excuse here.
Why are you looking at this?
Hey, so I'm reading this book and it says I have to do this. Can you do this? You know what I mean? Blame it on, I tell my kids that all the time. Blame it on me. Whatever you need to say to set your boundary, blame it on me. Same for the readers here. Blame it on the book. Okay, you've got to do, hey, I'm reading this book. It says I need to sit down and look at this. Would you be willing to do that with me? A few minutes. And it'll be insightful for both of you. So after the election comes, we're still going to have, this is going to be the, many months after here where we've got tons of misinformation and propaganda coming from all sorts of places.
It's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, between November and January. So this is like a really prime time for people to just take, a few days to read this book, to listen to the book on Audible, and increase their digital literacy enough that they can stand being on social media through this time. It's going to make social media such a better place for you to hang out when you've got this literacy skills that's going to just empower you to have a good time on that platform.
Fantastic. And be the smarter person in the room by having more information. That's
always
great.
fun to be the smarter person in the room.
Right? Well, thank you so much. I'm very excited.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you bringing this. It's fun to talk about.
I appreciate you coming to the
Thanks
vault.
for joining us to the end.
And tell Adrian,
this episode
hopefully
is
we'll
so
see her
jam-packed with good
soon
info.
too. And
If you want more, you can
Thank you so
download
much.
Down the Rabbit Hole.
Alrighty.
Find the link below. Thanks again for tuning into another episode of Vitality Vault. How are you using your power?